These are the 6 reasons why you need to let go of your avoidant ex. The first is that they are never going to meet your emotional needs. This is something that an avoidant is always going to have a problem with because they are so focused on making sure that the relationship is exactly what they want and they're not expressing any emotions or feeling vulnerable or dealing with any conflicts that could potentially come up. So they are always going to put themselves first in trying to ensure that they are controlling this, which is going to inevitably keep you neglected as far as them meeting your emotional expectations for what you would want in a relationship. This is what is so important for you to understand, is because you are going to continue to tell yourself that there is a chance that they'll change, that you just have to give it a little bit more time, give them more patience, but in reality, they are not going to make that change because the whole premise of an avoidant is to set things up to make sure that they are not going to have to express those emotions the way that they don't want, or to have to feel vulnerable, whatever it is that they are justifying for them being an avoidant. They are going to have a really good fortress to protect that. So you are never going to get to a place where that person is going to essentially meet your emotional needs, which is a huge part of being in a relationship with someone. Number 2 is the push and pull dynamic is exhausting. This is something, the more that you go through, it just drains you completely. You already probably know this, but if you don't, it is where when you start to get close to this person, they pull away. And the moment that you start to pull away, they end up getting closer to you and want to work things out. And it even looks like they may have changed, but you soon find out that it's not. And this is again a part of that cycle. This is something that puts you through such an emotional roller coaster. Every single time that you engage in it, it takes so much out of you because they do a really good job at convincing you that this is actually them changing, and they're actually going to do the things that you're expecting to try to make the relationship work. But this is not the case. They're going to keep doing this, the same exact cycle, until you stop it, until you show them that you are no longer going to put up with this and continue this game and cycle because you value yourself and your time and your emotions to have to keep going through that. But to them, they're always going to keep pushing their luck. They're always going to keep doing this the more that you engage and you show them that, this is something that's acceptable by continuing to let them come back and to treat you this way. You don't deserve to have to keep going through this and play this game. They need to figure out what it is that they need to do to process and work through this, which leads perfectly into number 3, in that they struggle with consistency. This is something that you will experience throughout the entire relationship, where it just seems like things are going great and you guys are on a good path, and then out of nowhere, it just all tanks and you're arguing and they're pulling away, they're doing all their avoidant stuff, and then they go back to a little bit like themselves, but it's not really them. It's just this continuous pattern of them just causing there to be no consistency as to showing who they are in the relationship, and how they're expressing the love that they have to you, which is very challenging for someone to go through because we expect to have some kind of consistency and safety within the relationship, and having it be all over the place is going to cause you to naturally be on edge, to where you don't get to really enjoy the times where it's good because you're so worried that it's just going to go and tank again, and you're going to go through this whole exact cycle, and it's just something that you're always having usually anxiety about, and it can cause for there to be a lot of emotional damage from that. But you have to understand that this is most likely going to be what the relationship is going to consist of. You're going to constantly have this inconsistency and just be on edge no matter what, because you are now conditioned with that. This is how it's always been for so long, and it probably always will be. And that's what you have to come to, that realization that it's time for you to just move on from this, because no one wants to have that type of inconsistencies. Things may happen in a relationship that shakes it up a little bit. That's normal, but this is not. This is deliberately done because, again, they are essentially going through whatever it is that's causing them to be an avoidant, and there's something that you're doing that's triggering them, and they essentially want to pull away. And this has everything to do with them and little to nothing to do with you. Number 4 is that it delays your healing. This is something that I think a lot of people who are going through a breakup with an avoidant are faced with, right? There's always that part of them that wonders if there is a chance that you guys can work things out. What could be done? Did you do enough? And even you might be blaming yourself because you've been manipulated throughout the entire relationship to believe that you were the problem when this is all on them. So you inevitably, without you maybe even realizing, are waiting around, and you delay the healing process that is so necessary for you to know what is the next best thing for you. That is such a crucial part of this, because when you start to heal, you start to realize all the different things that they've done to manipulate this in their favor, right? And you start to see the things that are actually for what they are rather than that skewed view. So you begin to see the value of you moving on from this relationship and redefining yourself, because chances are you probably don't even recognize yourself anymore. You've gone so long in this type of environment that it's changed you. And there's a lot of things about yourself that you've just allowed to be pushed away because of being in a relationship like that. And it's important for you to really understand that it's time to let them go, because it's so valuable for you to start to heal from this, because nobody should have to go through a relationship like that. You should be able to have a fluent relationship where you both feel like you're meeting each other's emotional needs and you're having a good time for the most part, which segues perfectly into number 5, is that you may lose yourself in the relationship. This tends to be a big issue when it comes to someone who's going through a relationship with an avoidant. They do not recognize themselves outside of the relationship anymore. Like, once they decide to move on, they've realized like how much they've allowed to just go on and how much they've lost who they are within the relationship, because that is essentially how the relationship was set up. Like, the avoidant needs to, in some way, in some form, kind of tear you down and break down those barriers so that they can infiltrate and put the blame on you and make you feel like you are the issue here, because that's what keeps this going. That's what allows them to continuously treat you this way and make you feel like you're the problem, and keeps you doing everything under the sun to try to make the relationship work while they're simply not doing anything. Because again, the avoidant is not trying to feel those emotions. They're not trying to deal with conflicts or vulnerability. And the only way for them to control that is to make you feel like you're the problem. So this inevitably causes you to no longer recognize yourself. You start to change drastically, and you don't realize it when you're in the relationship, because this happens gradually. It doesn't happen all at once. They're really good at kind of chipping away at that with that push and pull cycling, all those other different tactics that they may have used specifically in your relationship. But that is the objective. Essentially, hold yourself back from expressing the love and care and whatever it is that you would want to express naturally to your partner. They're trying to manipulate that to fit their ideal partner and what they want their partner to show to them, and all these different things that they're trying to manipulate to be exactly how they want it. Because when they do that, that's where their safety is, because they know what to expect. Once you're able to start to officially let them go, this is where you can start to rebuild yourself and redefine who you are and bring back the things that you love and enhance them, or whatever that might be for you. You're able to rebuild yourself back up again. And number 6, and the most important thing, is to realize that you cannot fix them. Deep down, you already know this, but I need you to really hear this and understand that there is absolutely nothing that you can do to fix them. They have to do all of this. And what requires them to do it is that they need to, 1, want to actually fix themselves, 2, actually take the actions, and 3, commit to it, which is not typically what you end up seeing. So while you are over here trying to do everything that you possibly can to get them to realize how this is really damaging to the relationship and not causing you guys to have a more intimate relationship with each other, they simply just have no desire to do that. They are sitting around just being like, yeah, I don't care. I'm going to be this way because this is how I've always been. And I don't want to paint them in such a negative picture, because there is a lot of things that they are dealing internally that's causing them to be that way, but there's still no excuse for them to not try to attempt to work through this, right? We all are struggling with our own mental things that are happening to us. And just like everyone else, we have to prioritize finding ways to work through these things. And they need to come to that realization that they are the problem. They are the reason why these relationships aren't working. And they're also causing a lot of destructions to their partners because, again, they are manipulating them to believe that they're the problem rather than looking inwardly and saying, like, I'm the problem. Like, it would probably be a lot better for you if they would recognize it and say, I see what I'm doing wrong and I acknowledge it and I need to work on that, right? You would have a lot of a better time and experience and have more patience if they're doing that and they're actively, trying to work on that. But chances are they're typically just doing nothing about it because they're always constantly justifying that way of being. They've built a fortress to keep that going, and that's why they have such a challenging time to actually work through this. But the main thing that you need to take away from all of this is that there's nothing that you can do. You may be able to convince them a little bit here and there and help them to get to that point, but that is very rare because at the end of the day, what is going to actually take them to wake up and make that change is typically when they lose somebody great like yourself and they realize, like, oh crap, like this was on me. I really messed this up. And in that moment, that's when they'll actively want to change and they'll do the things that is necessary. But until then, they're not. So that is why it is so important for you to let them go because you deserve better and you will find better. But right now, what you need to do is prioritize your healing journey and figuring out what that looks like for you. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe and I will see you in the next video.